Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Super-Fanta-Fi. This being a show where I talk about TV shows of the supernatural, fantasy, and/or science fictional genre. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about Ishura Season 2, Episode 10. A lot of really interesting things went down in this episode, so let's break it down. We're immediately picking up with Yukihara. He continues to be this fascinating enigma. Like, we don't, besides like wanting answers in the final lands, like, we don't really know what his whole shtick is and what he's really trying to gain from all of this. And he's talking to the being or whatever that's with him in the box or whatever that he's talking to. And he's talking about heading to the final land, and that basically there's two different fates that await those who go to the final land. Either when something happens there that makes you get knocked unconscious, and then you get taken somewhere else outside of the village, and those people kind of live, I guess, to tell the tale. But then the other fate is that you die. But then that's the question, well, if people die, how do people know? How does anyone know? Like, anyone that comes in here that dies, like, how would anyone know? And his thing is, whatever happens inside the final lands isn't what kills you. Whatever it is happens outside. And he's like, and she was like, oh, who do you think is the one doing that? And he's like, oh, obviously the answer is obvious. Is Okahu. They're killing anyone that discovers whatever answers lie in the final lands that they don't want the world to know, which is really interesting. And what I wasn't expecting was us to kind of go back 4 years to someone coming here back while the true Demon King was still alive. That being a musician, I'm going to butcher the name, is like Olukt. I'm butchering it, but the bard. He came here with the intentions of, well, everyone else has come to this land to try and fight the demon lord. Like, I'm gonna try a different approach. I'll try and like woo him or move him with my music. And he ends up running into a chimera, Ozo Nesma. It's the like kind of being that you see in the opening and outro with like all the arms sticking, like it almost looks like a wolf, but it's got all like these arms sticking out of it. It's interesting because Olukt was kind of like, are you like the demon king's like guardian or something? Because he was telling him like, yo, you don't want to go past here. Everyone has tried to face the demon king has died, and that's all that fate's going to await you. Because that village, he Olukt said like basically that village used to be a village of commerce, and now look at what it is. It's a village of ruins filled with people who've been driven insane. Yeah, that woman, I'm assuming that's her own child. Maybe it's not, but like beating that child to death with a severed arm. You're like, it's just the madness of the demon king, like doing that to people like that. I think those are the early stages of what eventually becomes like the zombieism of you becoming part of his army. But Olukt ends up playing his song, and he's like, oh, I wanted to play it to this one guy, because basically his thing is like, I'm gonna take people from here and I'm gonna take them back, bring kind of people. It's so interesting how that ties into where the episode ends up going present day. But it's interesting because Olukt ends up referencing he's played that one song for a single person, a blind girl, and it's Kurt. And you're like, interesting. And that made me think back to season 1, because I was like, if I remember correctly, Kurt would constantly sing a song to Regneji. He'd come and listen to her sing. And I don't remember the song at all. Like I said, I actually completely forgot that she sang until, and I could be misremembering, but that's what's slowly coming in my head. But I could be like retroactively like rewriting my memories to fit that narrative. But I'm trying to wonder, like, was it the same song? And it's so sad too, because we find out this mute bard, he died 2 years later. So 2 years ago from present time, he died because he went back. He even said like, I will come back, and just because, he ended up, he's like, and as the voiceover says, like, he died a brutal death like so many others. And the sad thing is, his name is lost. Like, his name was not left behind, nor like was his voice, that voice that he had, that soothing and sound of his voice is kind of gone. Because I make the argument, probably the only person that knows that song and that voice would be Kurt, but even she's dead present day. So you're like, Jesus, that's depressing. That's nobody wants to just be forgotten. Everyone wants to leave, be remembered, but like not your name, not your voice, not your songs will ever exist. Ozo Nesma like knows your name and the song, but he never leaves the final land. So it's probably a thing of, well, I mean, he wasn't there present day, but that might be a different section of the final lands that like Rick and the others didn't get to. But we'll get to that soon enough. So they probably never got that far into, but it looked like it's the same area. So I'm wondering, is he just not there anymore? Did he relocate somewhere else? Because there is a rumor. I think that was kind of being hinted at back then, but also it's very prevalent this day because Yukiharu talks about it and it ends up being part of the conversation with Rick and them, is that there's rumors that the Demon King had a child that's still behind in the final lands. But the thing is, no one knows what form it looks like, so no one knows what to really expect when going there. But anyway, focusing on present day, we catch up with oh god, I'm blanking on the goblin's name. Zagita meets up with this like archer named Rick. Zagita is the middleman for someone else because Rick was like, I thought I was meeting with like a minion. Why is there like a goblin middleman? And he's like, well, this is the job I was hired for. And I believe that's the same goblin that's in the intro and outro. That's with the kid with the gray hair that we've seen pop up. You know, he's the arms dealer. He's the one that Kazuki met with last episode that we found out is also a visitor himself. So I think that's the same guy because Rick is being hired by a village nearby that basically wants to clear out all the monsters in the final lands because it's like, oh, some of that stuff is bleeding outside of the final lands. And it's like, especially with like, was it Arimo? The whole Uhawk situation happened because Rick did say specifically like 2 incidents. So I mean, to be fair, it's probably like that village of Arimo and then like the other village where that Uhawk ended up killing that giant lady. So I guess those are probably the 2 tragedies he's referencing. But yeah, their job is to go in there and clear out any monsters, and they make their way. Well, they're not alone because they're with Krafneef, I believe is the name, and apparently they're special because they are one of the only people who've crafted another art outside of the 4 word arts. They crafted the 5th art, which is the soul arts, which is interesting. I don't know if we really well, I guess the constitution of what Krafneef's situation is, it seems like Krafneef's real form is like a flying little bug, and they're able to kind of like instill their soul and essence into like the bones. I mean, so obviously it's not the same thing as Shulk because Shulk's situation is different, but Krafneef's kind of like animates dead stuff. I mean, it's able to control other things too, so I guess, I don't know if it's a thing of like you're technically putting a little bit of your soul and everything to kind of be able to control it, whether it's like an animated like bones that serves your body or a creature that serves you. I don't know. Because the creature that he was using to fight, I'm like, isn't that the same species as the thing inside of the particle storm? But I can't remember. I think so. Because it's like a pseudo dragon just without obviously like the wings and stuff. It's like it's of the dragon kin. Kin, so. But there in the final lands, they run into the other, they run into an ooze that's kind of going crazy, and then a whole bunch of zombies. And as they're fighting them off, they get attacked by 2 who, she says like, no, I'm not the devil, the Demon King's child. And we kind of rewind 4 years ago. The child, she said, because I don't remember her name from season 1, but I don't even remember her name when they get introduced to her like 4 years ago. Basically, everyone around her was dead. The city was burning. She was about to kill herself, but 2 showed up and stopped her. What's her name? Like Shirat, I believe. She looks like the same character, but that's why I'm like, I don't remember the character's name. It's the princess or whatever. The person who's based, not the princess, I think she was a princess, but she's now the queen when it comes to Horatia. That like, because she had the whole silver hair thing too, and I'm wondering if it's the same girl. Because 2 was like, the voiceover is like, that's the only time they've seen each other. So I guess after they got out of that village or whatever, because she's like, oh, I want to see you smile. You're so pretty. Like, you need to smile. Because 2, it seems to be a very optimistic person and believing like, because she seems to not have, and like, other than knowing her name, it seems like she might have amnesia. I'm wondering, is she a visitor as well, considering like how crazy powerful she is? But who knows? Because it might be a thing that she just doesn't remember a lot about herself, which is interesting considering Shulk doesn't remember his life. But maybe I'm misinterpreting that. But it sounded like she kind of didn't know anything about herself prior to two, because they even say like, oh, like beyond like her being in the final lands, like there's no traces of her origins, or at least the narrator's voiceover kind of says that. But she's crazy powerful. She's all fist, as it says, like just overwhelming physical prowess. It's kind of like her magic, and she seems to be impenetrable because Home Dude's arrows didn't pierce through, the creature didn't pierce through, and she's kind of got like that childlike wonderment to her character, and she wants to kind of like be a fighter for justice, because the reason why she's fighting Krafnif and Rick is because they were attacking these villagers. Because for her, she sees them as victims. And like, these people need to be saved. And it's like, well, if we leave these people alive, they'll go out of the village and attack other villages. And she's like, so the solution is just to kill them? It's like, these people need to be saved, and she wants to save them. But Rick, rather than continuing the fight, it's like, I give up. He's like, and then he's like, go ahead and check that guy's body. And she does, and it's like, wait, he's alive. His arrows weren't meant to kill, because he's like, I was ordered by a village to come here and wipe them out, but that reward from that one village isn't enough to get Zagita, like the goblin, hiring him would cost way more. So he took a job from Okahu, who wants these people brought back. Now, I don't know if it's like a test subject thing or what they're necessarily up to, not unless they plan on taking the Demon King's army and making it their own as a means of challenging Erasia and its power. Maybe, I don't know. But yeah, like all these people are going to be brought back. Once again, it could easily just be test subjects in general. But for two, she's happy hearing that. And even Rick, it's like, oh, Krafnif, you did the same thing, right? Like your giant worm thing ate them whole. It never chewed them up and broke them up into pieces. But he's like, no, I'm just using them so I could get like creational materials or something like that. And he's trying to be like, I'm not the good guy you're trying to paint me as, But two is so excited because she's like, wow, you guys are both good guys. And now that this has kind of happened, and now these people here are being saved, because I think that's the main reason for sticking around, which is like, I need to oversee these people and protect them and make sure no one, because now it begs the question, like, because I guess maybe her whole thing is like, because she had even said, like, don't make me go full speed, because if I do, I will rip you to pieces. So she was still going buck wild, but she wasn't going as buck wild as she could have. I'm wondering, is she the one that's been knocking people out and then taking them out of the village? And it's just like, oh, you wake up and then you take off. Why no one ever referenced her before? Not unless she's the one that people conceived and believed her to be the Demon King's child, whatever the case may be. But her main thing is she wants to leave because she wants to track down that girl that it's like, oh, I wanted to see her, be able to make her smile. Plus, she wants to go to Erasia. Like, the fact that she wants to specifically go to Erasia must kind of imply, like, that is, in fact, the girl that is currently queen. So, obviously, Rick knows about the Royal Games taking place, and apparently Krafnif is one person who has a right, for entry into it. So, very, very fascinating developments. You'd assume on the way out they're going to end up running into Yukiharu, considering he's on his way there. So maybe in the aftermath of all this, like, maybe you'll get I don't know. I don't know where that's going to go. I'm actually going to be a little sad if something does happen to Yukiharu, like if he dies. And once again, whether that's something that happens more closer in the next 2 episodes of the anime, or whether it's just something that happens eventually in a light novel, because once again, these characters could all drop like flies at any moment in time. So the fact is, we kept getting introduced to all these other characters. I was so scared that we were going to have a Kazuki situation. Once again, I don't know why, because I was like, oh, well, you're not the 2 character. You're not 2. You're not 2. Oh, this is finally 2. So like I was kind of scared for a moment, but I was like, okay, we're not. Once again, they're not going to Kazuki an episode back to back. That's a one-off thing where it's like, oh, we got to catch you off guard, thinking like, oh, Kazuki's going to be around. Nope, she's dead by the end of the episode. This is more of a Shulk episode than it was a Kazuki episode. Once again, it's kind of interesting to consider, like, the first chunk of the episode revolves around Yukiharu specifically and stuff. So, but yeah, just some interesting stuff. I'm curious to ultimately see where all of this ends up taking us going forward into the next episode. Like I said, I believe this season's 12 episodes like last season, so only 2 episodes left. So it's going to be interesting. The fact is we haven't had a culmination like the later chunk of where basically the back half of season was kind of, well, not probably a little less than back half, but still on the backer half of the season kind of culminated in a lot of stuff, and we haven't really had that. There's been crossover, obviously storyline wise, implemented throughout, but it's mainly still continue to be one-off characters with some sprinkling ends of like a Yukiharu who continues to be like a recurring through line. But we'll see how these next 2 episodes shape up and play out. But really, that's all I wanted to talk about. Till the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day and goodbye.